The chamber of the Galactic Council was enormous. Representatives from 200 different species sat in their designated seats, each one looking different from the next. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few glowed with strange lights. At the center podium stood Ambassador Minji, a human woman with gray hair tied back in a neat bun. She wore the dark blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, and her face showed no emotion as she spoke. I stand before this council to remind you all of Treaty Section 7. Paragraph 12, Minji said, her voice calm but firm. Any military action against human children will be considered an act of total war against humanity. This clause has existed since we joined the Council 85 years ago. A ripple of sound moved through the chamber. Some species made clicking noises, others hummed, and a few simply laughed. Councillor Vexrel, a tall being with purple skin and 4 arms, leaned forward in his seat. His species, the Thalorians, had been part of the Council for over 3,000 years. They considered themselves the wisest race in the galaxy. Ambassador Minji, Vexrel said with obvious amusement in his voice, surely you do not expect us to take such primitive threats seriously? Your species has been peaceful for nearly a century. This clause is nothing more than words from your violent past. Other council members nodded in agreement. The human military was small compared to others. Earth had only a modest fleet of patrol ships and defense stations. Everyone knew humans were good at making deals and building clever machines, but war? That was ancient history for them. Minji's expression did not change. I am not making a threat, Counselor. I am reminding you of a promise. There is a difference. Before Vexrel could respond, High Commander Rithol stood up. He was a Krynith, a species that looked like walking armor plated with thick gray shells. His people controlled a large empire on the edge of Council space, and they had been fighting with the Council for years about borders and trade routes. The Council has more important matters to discuss than ancient human paranoia, Rithol said, his voice deep and grinding. My empire has rightful claims to the neutral zones, and we will not allow Council ships to pass through our territory. The discussion quickly shifted away from Minji's warning. She stood at the podium for a moment longer, looking at each council member carefully. Then she returned to her seat, her hands folded in her lap. No one noticed the small communication device in her palm, or the message she had just sent to Earth. They do not remember. Pray they never have to learn. Far across the galaxy, Captain Jawan stood on the bridge of the colony ship Bright Horizon. She was a tall woman in her late 40s with short black hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Her ship was massive, nearly 2 kilometers long, designed to carry thousands of people to new worlds. Right now, it held 3,000 civilians, including 847 children. Captain, we are approaching the disputed zone, said pilot Hyunwoo from his station. He was young, maybe 25, with an eager face and quick hands on the controls. Council records show this space is neutral. We have clearance to pass through. Giwon nodded. Maintain course? We are not military. We are not a threat. Any reasonable species will let us pass. The Bright Horizon moved through the darkness of space, its lights glowing like a small city. Inside, families were having dinner. Children were doing homework or playing games. In one section, a 9-year-old boy named Youngsu sat at a small desk, writing in his journal. His little sister Yoonji, only 7 years old, played on the floor nearby with her stuffed rabbit. Youngsu, when will we get to New Haven? Yoonji asked, looking up at her brother. 3 more weeks, Youngsu said, not looking up from his writing. Then we will have a real house with a garden? Mom said I can help plant vegetables. Dr. Subin walked past their quarters, checking on families as she always did. She was the ship's chief medical officer, a kind woman who always had a smile ready. Everything felt normal. Everything felt safe. On the bridge, an alarm began to beep. Haimu's face went pale as he read his screens. Captain, we have 6 ships approaching fast. They are Krynith military vessels. Jiwon felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. Open a communication channel. The main screen flickered to life, showing a Krynith officer with dark eyes and scarred armor. Human vessel, you are in Krynith space. Turn back immediately. This is Captain Jiwan of the Bright Horizon, she said calmly. We are a civilian colony ship on an approved council route. This space is designated as neutral. We have done nothing wrong. The council has no authority here, the Krenoth officer replied. Turn back or be destroyed. Jiwan kept her voice steady, but her hands gripped the armrests of her chair. There are 3,000 civilians on this ship. Over 800 are children. We are not armed. We are not soldiers. Let us pass. The Krenoth officer's face showed nothing. You have 1 minute to change course. Hyunwoo looked at his captain, fear clear in his eyes. Captain? Jiwan thought about the families sleeping in their quarters. She thought about Youngsu writing in his journal and Eunji playing with her rabbit. She thought about the promise that every human child would be protected. The council had approved this route. This was supposed to be safe. We hold course, Jiwan said quietly. We have done nothing wrong. They will not fire on civilians. The seconds ticked away. 30 seconds, 2010, the Krenoth officer disappeared from the screen. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Hyunwoo screamed. Incoming fire. The first blast hit the Bright Horizon's shields, and the entire ship shook. Lights flickered. Alarm screamed. Jiwan grabbed her communication system. All hands, emergency evacuation procedures. Get everyone to the escape pods now. But there was not enough time. The Krenoth ships fired again and again, tearing through the colony ship's weak shields. The Bright Horizon was not built for war. It was built for hope, for families, for dreams of new worlds. Captain Jiwan managed to launch 400 people in escape pods before the reactor core was hit. She was still on the bridge, still trying to save her people when the explosion came. The rescue ships arrived 6 hours too late. They found debris floating in space, pieces of what used to be the Bright Horizon. Escape pods drifted in the darkness, some empty, some holding survivors who stared at nothing with empty eyes. 400 people had survived. 2,600 had died. Among them were 623 children. Lieutenant Zekthar of the Krenoth Empire filed his report without emotion. Civilian vessel refused to obey lawful orders. Vessel was destroyed. Investigating possible council spy activities. He did not mention the children. To him, they were just numbers. On one of the rescue ships, a salvage officer found a small book floating in space. It was a journal, the pages damp but still readable. The last entry was written in a child's handwriting. The ship is shaking. Eunji is scared. I told her we would be okay. I told her to hold her rabbit tight. I hope I did not lie to her. I hope Mom and Dad find us. I am trying to be brave, like Captain Jiwan said. The officer's hands shook as he read. He turned to the last page where a photo was tucked inside. 2 children smiling at the camera. A boy and a girl. The boy held up a drawing of a house with a garden. The news reached Earth in minutes. Then it spread to every human colony, every space station, every ship. The reaction was not loud at first. It was quiet. Terribly, dangerously quiet. People stopped in the streets. Parents held their children closer. Old soldiers who had not thought about war in decades felt something cold wake up inside them. Ambassador Minji received the report while she was in her quarters at the council station. She read it once. Then she read it again. Her hands did not shake. Her face did not change. She simply stood up, put on her uniform jacket, and walked to the council chamber. It was the middle of the night cycle, but she did not care. She entered the chamber and activated the emergency call system. Within 20 minutes, council members began arriving, some confused, some annoyed at being woken up. Councillor Vexrel arrived looking irritated. Ambassador, what is the meaning of this? He demanded. It is the rest cycle. This had better be important. Minji stood at the center podium. Behind her, the large screen activated, showing images from the rescue operation. Pieces of the Bright Horizon, escape pods, the journal pages, the photo of 2 smiling children. The Krenoth Empire has destroyed a civilian colony ship, Minji said, her voice flat and cold. 3,000 civilians were aboard. 623 were children. The ship was unarmed and traveling through neutral space on an approved council route. The chamber fell silent. Some council members leaned forward to see the images better. Others looked away. High Commander Rathel stood up, his armor clanking. The vessel was in Kreneth territory. They refused to change course. We have the right to defend our borders. Minji turned to look at him. Her eyes were like ice. You murdered children. We eliminated potential threats, Rathel replied. If there were civilians aboard, that is unfortunate, but they should have obeyed our commands. Minji was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke again, and every being in the chamber felt something shift in the air. You have 48 hours to surrender yourself and all officers involved in this attack. You will stand trial for these murders. If you do not comply, humanity will respond. Counselor Vexrol made a dismissive sound. Ambassador, please. We understand you are upset, but threats will not help the situation. The Council will investigate this incident through proper channels. Justice takes time. You have 48 hours, Minji repeated. Other council members began talking at once. Some demanded that humans calm down. Others suggested forming an investigation committee. A few called for sanctions against the Kreneth Empire, but nothing serious. Nothing that mattered, Rathel laughed. It was a harsh, grinding sound. The human military is barely 100 ships. My empire has thousands. The council fleet has tens of thousands. You make threats you cannot back up. Minji closed the journal she had been holding. Youngsu's journal. She placed it carefully on the podium. I told you once before. I am not making a threat. I am giving you a warning. There is a difference. She walked out of the chamber. No one stopped her. Some council members laughed nervously. Others looked uncomfortable but said nothing. Vexrol shook his head. Humans and their emotions. They will calm down in a few days. But they did not calm down. Across human space, something was happening. Military bases that had been quiet for decades suddenly went active. Ships that had been in storage were being powered up. Soldiers who had retired were getting calls. And in the deepest parts of human territory, in places that did not appear on any council star charts, fleets that no one knew existed began to move. Admiral Taijin stood in the command center of Earth's military headquarters. He was an old man, 70 years old, with gray hair and a face full of scars from wars long past. He had fought in the last great human conflict before Earth unified. He knew what humans were capable of when pushed too far. Sir, all reserve units are reporting ready, said an officer. 847 ships are awaiting your command. Taijin nodded slowly. 847. One for each child. That was not a coincidence. That was a message. Have we heard from the council? He asked. No, sir. They are still debating proper procedures for an investigation. Taijin looked at the star map showing Kreneth space. He thought about the children who would never reach New Haven. He thought about parents who would never hold their kids again. He thought about a little girl with a stuffed rabbit and a boy who wanted to plant a garden. The time for procedures is over, he said quietly. Send the order. All units jump in 30 minutes. Target, Kreneth military installations. Rules of engagement, total war. Civilians are to be protected at all costs, but anything military is a valid target. The officer hesitated. Sir, the council will protest. They might even declare us criminals. Taijin turned to look at him. His eyes were cold and hard. They violated the first rule. They attacked our children. Now they learn what happens next. The 48 hours passed. The Kreneth Empire did not surrender their commanders. The council did not act. And then across the galaxy, 847 human warships appeared out of nowhere. Jumping directly into Kreneth space, the war had begun. The Kreneth Military Command Center was supposed to be impossible to attack. It was protected by 3 layers of defense stations, hundreds of patrol ships, and detection systems that could spot an enemy from light years away. But when the human ships appeared, they did not come from light years away. They came from everywhere at once. One moment, the space around Kryneth Prime was empty. The next moment, 847 warships materialized in perfect formation. They had used jump technology that no one in the galaxy knew humans possessed. The defense stations had no time to respond before the first wave of missiles arrived. Admiral Tyjan stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Retribution. The ship was massive, bigger than any human vessel the Council had ever seen. It was painted black, with no lights except for the red glow of its weapon systems. Around it, hundreds of similar ships held position, all of them weapons hot and ready. "Sir, Kryneth Defense Fleet is scrambling to respond," reported Lieutenant G.A. from her tactical station. She was young, but her voice was calm, almost cold. "They have approximately 400 ships moving to intercept." 400 against 800, Tyjan said quietly. "They still think we fight fair. Target their weapons and engines. I want them disabled, not destroyed. Crews are to be given a chance to evacuate." "Understood, sir." The human fleet moved like a single organism. Ships broke into smaller groups, each one targeting specific Kryneth vessels with precision the aliens had never seen before. Human missiles did not just fly in straight lines. They dodged, weaved, and worked together like hunting packs. When they hit, they struck weapon systems and engine cores, leaving the Kryneth ships helpless but intact. Within 30 minutes, the defense fleet was crippled. Not destroyed, crippled. The message was clear. Humans could have killed everyone, but they chose not to. That somehow made it more terrifying. In the military command center on Kryneth Prime, High Commander Rothel watched the screens in disbelief. "This is impossible. Where did they get these ships? Our intelligence said humans had barely 100 vessels." His second-in-command, a younger officer, was frantically checking reports. "Sir, they are hitting all our military bases simultaneously. We are receiving distress calls from 15 different systems. They are everywhere at once." Rothel slammed his fist on the console. "Send every available ship? I want these humans crushed." But there were no available ships. The human fleet had appeared in every major Kryneth military system at the same time, and they were systematically destroying base after base, station after station, and they did it with a speed and precision that spoke of planning that must have taken years aboard a human intelligence ship. Minho sat at his computer station surrounded by glowing screens. He was a thin man with glasses, looking more like a teacher than a soldier, but his fingers flew across the keyboard with deadly purpose. He had spent the last 10 years studying alien computer systems, and now he was using that knowledge. "I am in their communication network," he said to his commanding officer. "Broadcasting now." Every screen in Kryneth space suddenly changed. Military displays, civilian news feeds, personal communication devices, all of them showed the same thing. Photos of children. Human children. Each photo showed a smiling face, a name, and an age. 623 photos, cycling through one after another. Below the photos, text scrolled in every language the Kryneth Empire used. "These are the children you murdered. These are the reasons we are here. Remember their faces." On Kryneth Prime, civilian Kryneths watched their screens in confusion and growing horror. Many of them had not even known about the attack on the bright horizon. Their government had not told them. Now they saw the faces of the dead, and they understood why the humans had come. The human fleet continued its assault. They targeted military factories, weapons depots, and command centers. But they avoided civilian areas with surgical precision. When a Kryneth hospital was caught near a military base, human ships held their fire and waited for civilians to evacuate before striking. Lieutenant G.A. coordinated the attacks from the Retribution with cold efficiency. Group 7, target that weapons factory. Group 12, there is a civilian transport in your firing lane. Hold your position until it clears. An officer at a nearby station looked up. "Ma'am, if we wait, the factory might get its shields back online." "Then we wait," Jaye said without emotion. "We do not become murderers to punish murderers. That is the difference between us and them." The officer nodded and returned to his work. Around him, other crew members worked in focused silence. There was no celebration, no excitement. They did what needed to be done, but they took no joy in it. 6 hours into the assault, 40% of Kryneth military capability was gone. Their ships floated helpless in space. Their bases burned. Their command structure was in chaos. And the humans had suffered exactly 0 casualties. High Commander Rathel finally understood the terrible truth. The humans had not sent their entire fleet. This was not humanity desperate and throwing everything they had into one attack. This was humanity sending exactly 847 ships as a message. They could have sent more. They had chosen this number specifically. He recorded an emergency message to the Galactic Council. His voice, usually so strong and commanding, now shook with fear. This is High Commander Rathel of the Kryneth Empire to the Galactic Council. The humans are attacking us with overwhelming force. We cannot stop them. Our fleet is destroyed. Our defenses are gone. You must send the Council peacekeeping fleet immediately. You must stop them. The humans are monsters. The message reached the Council chamber within minutes. Councillor Vexrel and others watched it with expressions of shock. Ambassador Minji sat in her chair, her face showing nothing. We must send the fleet. Vexrel shouted. We cannot allow this aggression. Minji stood up slowly. You had 48 hours to deliver justice. You chose to do nothing. Now you see what justice looks like when it does not wait for committees and debates. They are destroying an entire empire. They are destroying a military, Minji corrected coldly. If they wanted to destroy an empire, there would be no civilians left alive. Check the reports. Look at the casualty numbers. How many civilian deaths have been reported? Vexrel checked his data screen. His face went pale. 17? 17 civilian casualties in 6 hours of warfare? Accidents, Minji said. Collateral damage that could not be avoided. 17 is 17 too many, but it is not 623 children deliberately murdered. Do you see the difference now? The council chamber fell silent. They were beginning to understand something terrible. Humanity was not out of control. They were not lost in rage or revenge. They were executing a precisely planned military operation with clear objectives and rules of engagement. That made them far more dangerous than any species driven by emotion. Admiral, Taijin received a report from his intelligence division. Sir, Council fleet is mobilizing. They may attempt to interfere. Broadcast on all channels, Taijin ordered. I want every ship in the galaxy to hear this. His face appeared on screens across known space. His voice was calm but carried the weight of absolute conviction. This is Admiral Taijin of the Earth Defense Force. We are currently engaged in military action against the Kryneth Empire for the murder of 623 human children. Any vessel that attempts to interfere will be considered an accomplice to child murder and will be treated accordingly. This is your only warning. Stand down. In Council space, fleet commanders looked at each other. Some species immediately ordered their ships to hold position. Their historians had been busy, pulling up information about humanity's past. What they found terrified them. The world wars, the nuclear age, centuries of conflict before humanity finally unified. These were not peaceful herbivores playing at war. These were predators who had learned to control their nature. And now that control was gone, the Council fleet held position. No one interfered. And the human assault continued. On the third day of the war, something unexpected happened. 50 human ships broke away from the main fleet and jumped to Kryneth civilian worlds. When they arrived, they did not attack. Instead, they broadcast a message in all Kryneth languages. Attention all civilians. Your military has collapsed. There will be chaos and shortages. We are here to help. Please proceed to the marked evacuation zones if you need assistance. Captain Seojin commanded the human ship Mercy, one of the 50 vessels sent on this mission. She was a calm woman in her 30s with kind eyes, though right now those eyes were tired. Her ship was designed for rescue and medical operations, not war. Captain, we are receiving thousands of requests for help, reported her communications officer. Food shortages, medical emergencies, power failures in the cities. Their infrastructure is collapsing. Begin relief operations, Sojin ordered. Prioritize medical emergencies and anyone in immediate danger. Let them know we are not here to hurt them. The Mercy and the other relief ships moved into orbit around Kreneth civilian worlds. They established refugee camps using portable shelters. They sent down medical teams. They provided food, water, and power generators. And when desperate Kreneth civilians arrived at the camps, they found human soldiers offering help. Not Weapons. Coordinator Doyun managed one of the largest refugee camps on the Kreneth colony world of Terek. He was a thin man who had worked in disaster relief for years. Never expecting to do it during a war, now he walked through rows of temporary shelters. Checking on the families inside, a young Kreneth female approached him nervously. She carried a small child in her arms. "Please, my child is sick. Can you help?" Doyun smiled gently. "Of course. Our medical tent is this way. We have doctors who can help." He led her to a large tent where human medics worked alongside Kreneth civilians who had medical training. A human doctor, a woman named Solman, examined the child quickly. "Respiratory infection? Nothing serious, but we need to treat it. I have medicine that will help." The Kreneth mother watched in confusion as the human doctor worked. "I do not understand. Your people are at war with us. You should hate us." Solman prepared an injection for the child, her movements gentle and practiced. "Your leaders made a terrible choice. You did not. This child certainly did not. We do not hate you. We never did, but we killed your children." Solman paused. For a moment, pain showed in her eyes. Then she continued with the injection. "Your military killed our children. Not you, not this little one. We know the difference." Across the refugee camps, similar scenes played out. Human soldiers shared their food rations with hungry Kreneth families. Engineers worked to restore power to damaged civilian areas. Teachers set up classes for displaced children. It was strange and confusing for the Kreneth civilians. But they were grateful, however. Not all humans found it easy to show mercy. In one camp, a young human soldier named Junho stood guard duty. He watched Kreneth children playing in the refugee area, and his hands clenched into fists. He kept seeing the photos that Minho had broadcast. 623 human children who would never play again. Coordinator Doyan noticed Junho's tension and approached him quietly. "Are you okay?" "No," Junho said honestly. "I keep thinking about the bright horizon. About those kids. And now I am supposed to smile and help the people whose government killed them." "Not their government," Doyan corrected gently. "Their government's military. Most of these civilians did not even know about the attack until we broadcast the truth. They are victims too, in a different way. It still feels wrong. Helping them." Doyan was quiet for a moment, then spoke softly. "I know. But think about what we would become if we let innocent people suffer just because they share genetics with the guilty. We would become the monsters they fear. We would prove them right to attack us. Is that what you want?" Junho was silent. Then he shook his head. No, I do not want that." "Then we do the hard thing," Doyan said. "We help them. We show them that humanity is better than what was done to us." While the relief operations continued, the human military completed its objectives. Every Kreneth military base was destroyed or captured. Every warship was disabled. The Empire's ability to wage war was completely eliminated. And then Admiral Taijin gave the order that shocked the galaxy: begin withdrawal operations. Our mission is complete. On the council station, representatives could not believe what they were hearing. Counselor Clara, a being from the Viridian species who had tried to stay neutral during the conflict, addressed Ambassador Minji. "You are withdrawing? But you have won. The Kreneth Empire is defenseless. You could occupy their worlds, take their resources, anything you want." "We do not want their worlds," Minji replied calmly. "We wanted justice. We have it, but they might rebuild their military. They might attack again. If they do, we will be back. Minji's voice was cold steel. And next time, we will not be so merciful. They know this now. Everyone knows this now. The human fleet began to withdraw, but they left behind something important. Before the relief ships departed, they handed over supplies and equipment to help rebuild civilian infrastructure. They also left detailed records of every military target they had destroyed and why, making it clear that this was a precision strike against those responsible for the attack on the Bright Horizon. But one mission remained. Admiral Taijin sent his best special operations team to locate High Commander Rathel. The commander had tried to flee, taking a small personal ship and heading for deep space. He thought he could hide, that the humans would give up the search eventually. He was wrong. Pilot Hyunwoo, who had survived the Bright Horizon attack, led the team that found him. They intercepted his ship near a dead system, far from any civilization. Rathel tried to fight, but it was over in seconds. Hyunwoo stood over the captured commander, his face hard. "You killed my captain," Hyunwoo said quietly. "You killed children who just wanted to reach a new home. You are coming with us to face trial." Rathel's armor was scarred and damaged. He looked up at the young human pilot with what might have been fear. "If I surrender, will you kill me?" "No," Hyunwoo said. "We are not murderers. We are not you. You will stand trial before the Galactic Council. You will answer for what you did. And then justice will decide your fate, not revenge." They brought Rathel and his command staff back to Council space in restraints. The galaxy watched as the prisoners were transferred to Council custody. Ambassador Minji made one final broadcast from the Council chamber. The Krinoth Empire attacked a civilian vessel carrying children. We responded with military force against military targets. We have eliminated their ability to harm innocents while protecting their civilians from collateral damage. This is what justice looks like. Not revenge. Not genocide, justice, let this be remembered. The council chamber was silent. Even Counselor Vexrol, who had mocked human warnings, said nothing. The galaxy had learned something important. Humanity could be patient. Humanity could be kind. Humanity could be merciful. But humanity would never, ever forgive those who harmed children. And anyone who forgot that lesson would learn it the hard way. 3 weeks after the attack on the Bright Horizon, the Galactic Council convened for the most important trial in its 3,000-year history. The chamber was filled to capacity. Representatives from every member species attended, and millions more watched the broadcast across the galaxy. High Commander Rathel stood in the center of the chamber, in restraints. Beside him were 15 of his officers, the ones who had given or followed the orders to fire on the colony ship. They looked small and defeated, their armor stripped away. Wearing simple prison uniforms, Ambassador Minji stood at the prosecution podium. She carried a single item with her, Youngsu's journal, carefully preserved despite its time in space. She placed it on the podium where everyone could see it. "This trial is not complicated," Minji began, her voice calm and clear. "The facts are simple and undisputed. A civilian colony ship, the Bright Horizon, was traveling through neutral space on a council-approved route. The defendants attacked this ship without warning. They destroyed it completely. 3,000 civilians died, including 623 children. The evidence is absolute. We have communication records, sensor logs, and survivor testimony. There is no doubt about what happened." Rathel's defense attorney, a Viridian lawyer appointed by the council, stood up. The Krinoth Empire had declared that space as part of their territory. The vessel refused to change course. While the outcome is tragic, my client was defending what he believed were legitimate borders. Minji turned to look at the attorney. Her expression was ice cold. "There are no legitimate borders that justify murdering children." She activated the main display screen. It showed the communication records from the Bright Horizon. Captain Yuan's calm voice filled the chamber. "This is Captain Yuan of the Bright Horizon. We are a civilian colony ship on an approved council route. This space is designated as neutral. We have done nothing wrong. Then Rathal's voice, harsh and unyielding, "Turn back or be destroyed." Jiwan again. "There are 3,000 civilians on this ship. Over 800 are children. We are not armed. We are not soldiers. Let us pass." The recording continued, showing the exact moment when the Kreneth ships opened fire. The display showed sensor data of the colony ship's shields failing, the desperate attempt to evacuate, and the final explosion. There was no sound, but everyone in the chamber could imagine the screams. Minji let the silence stretch. Then she opened Youngsu's journal and began to read. This is from the last entry, written by a 9-year-old boy named Youngsu while the ship was under attack. "The ship is shaking. Unji is scared. I told her we would be okay. I told her to hold her rabbit tight. I hope I did not lie to her." She closed the journal gently. He did lie to her, because of the decisions made by the defendants. Youngsu and Yunji did not make it to the escape pods. Their bodies were never recovered. They are gone, along with 621 other children whose only crime was wanting to reach a new home. Around the chamber, council members shifted uncomfortably. Some could not meet Minji's eyes. Even species that had no concept of children in the human sense understood the fundamental wrong that had been committed. Rathal finally spoke, his voice defiant. "It was war. There are always casualties in war. If civilians were aboard, that is unfortunate, but they should have obeyed our orders. We cannot be held responsible for their poor choices." The chamber erupted. Council members shouted in multiple languages. Some called for immediate conviction. Others demanded harsher punishments than the council usually allowed. Councillor Clara had to call for order multiple times before the noise died down. Minji waited until silence returned. Then she spoke again, and her words were heavy with controlled fury. "You call it war. But you did not declare war. You did not give a formal warning. You simply opened fire on an unarmed civilian vessel because it inconvenienced you. That is not war. That is murder." The trial continued for 3 more days. Witnesses testified. Survivors told their stories. Kreneth civilians came forward to speak against their own government, explaining that they had never authorized or even known about the attack. The evidence was overwhelming. On the 4th day, the council delivered its verdict. Councillor Vexrol, who had once mocked human warnings, now spoke with a voice heavy with shame. High Commander Rathal and his command staff are found guilty of genocide, murder of civilians, and crimes against sentient life. The sentence is life imprisonment without possibility of parole. It was the harshest sentence the council had ever given. But Minji stood up again. "The council's justice is noted and appreciated. However, humanity has one more request." "What is it?" asked Vexrol. "We request that the council pass a new law. We call it the Protection of All Children Act. Any attack on civilians, especially children, of any species will be considered a crime of the highest order. Not just discouraged, not just frowned upon, a crime punishable by the full force of council law." The council members looked at each other. Then one by one they voted. The law passed unanimously. It was the fastest any legislation had ever moved through the council. After the trial, Admiral Taijin gave one final address to the galaxy. He stood in the bridge of the Retribution, still in orbit around Earth. His face was tired but firm. "We did not want this war," he said. "We never wanted to show you this side of humanity. For 85 years we have been peaceful members of the Galactic Council. We have shared our technology, our art, our friendship. We chose peace because we know what war costs. We know it better than most of you can imagine." He paused, looking directly at the camera. "But understand this clearly. We will always choose peace first. We will negotiate. We will compromise. We will find solutions that work for everyone. But if you harm our children or anyone's children, we will not hesitate. We will not debate. We will act. And when we act, you will understand why we usually choose peace." He leaned forward slightly. "This galaxy has seen what happens when humanity is pushed too far. Pray you never have to learn what happens when we are pushed beyond that. The Kreneth Empire learned the first lesson. There are others we could teach. but we would prefer not to. Choose peace. Protect the innocent. Honor life. That is all we ask." The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, species that had considered humanity weak or naive began to revise their estimates. The humans were neither weak nor naive. They were simply patient. And their patience had limits. 2 months after the trial, a small ceremony took place on the planet that was supposed to be called New Haven. Despite everything, human colonists had arrived and begun building their settlement. In the center of the main town, they created a memorial garden. 847 trees were planted, one for each child who died. Each tree had a small marker with a name, an age, and a photo. The garden was called the Garden of Remembrance, and it quickly became a place where people came to think about the cost of violence and the value of peace. Captain Jiwan, one of the few from the bright horizon to survive, planted the last 2 trees herself. They were for Youngsu and Yunji. She placed Youngsu's journal in a sealed case beneath his tree, along with a photo of him and his sister smiling. "I'm sorry I could not keep you safe," she whispered, tears running down her face. "But I promise your deaths meant something. The galaxy will remember. They will think twice before harming children ever again." Around her, survivors and colonists stood in silence. Some cried. Others prayed in their own ways. But all of them understood that something had changed. Humanity had shown the galaxy 2 faces, the face of mercy and the face of wrath. Both were equally real. Both were equally human. Ambassador Minji attended the ceremony, standing quietly at the back. After everyone else had left, she approached the trees planted for Youngsu and Eunji. She placed her hand on each tree gently. "Your names will be remembered," she said softly. "Not just by humans, by everyone. You became symbols. I wish you could have just been children." She turned to look up at the sky, where stars were beginning to appear in the evening. Somewhere up there, the Galactic Council was meeting. They were discussing the new protection laws. They were adjusting their military doctrines. They were learning. The galaxy had learned the first rule the hard way: never attack the children of humanity. But Minji knew there were other rules, other lines that should never be crossed. She prayed the galaxy would learn those lessons more gently. In the Garden of Remembrance, young trees swayed in the breeze. They would grow tall and strong, a living reminder of lives lost and lessons learned. And humanity would tend them carefully because humans never forgot. They forgave when they could, but they never, ever forgot. The galaxy was safer now. All children were safer now. That had to count for something. That had to mean the tragedy was not entirely in vain. In the growing darkness, the Garden of Remembrance stood as a promise. This would not happen again. Not to human children. Not to anyone's children. Never again.